everybody, it's Dale Jr. She said, go for it. Hey, everybody, it's Dale Jr. at the Dale Jr. Download. This is the Ask Junior portion of the show, sponsored by Nationwide. Appreciate everybody for tuning in on our YouTube channel. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe to Dirty Mo Media's YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram for all kinds of great content. Leah, you're going to hear her voice. That's our media
my voice
expert. She's going to be she's going to be repeating your questions that you guys are sending in to us, and you might also hear Mike Davis as well off camera. But let's get started, Leah.
All right, first question comes from James Maples. He wants to know, how would you all feel about NASCAR adding an endurance race? 24 hours Indy road course sounds kind of interesting.
Love it. You know what I think would be a great idea for NASCAR to do is for IMSA and NASCAR to do together is for the 24 hours of Daytona, they should introduce and include a stock car class. And they should have one car from each organization. So you would have one car from Gibbs, one car from Hendrick, one car from Front Row, one car from, each team to have a relatively reasonable field of anywhere from 8 to 12 vehicles to compete in the stock car class. And I mentioned this actually during the broadcast of the 24 hours of Daytona on NBC this year. The only question we had really, I think, was whether the engines could be prepared to sustain 24 hours of racing. And Doug Yates, who builds motors for a lot of the Fords in the Cup Series, said, "Yeah, we could do it. We could do that. That'd be a lot of fun." I think it'd be great for the teams to challenge themselves. It'd be a new challenge for organizations and teams to develop cars and equipment to withstand the grueling beating that a car is going to take throughout that race. You'd have to work out the headlights and all those things, and there'd be some new technology that would have to be incorporated, and it might be relatively expensive to do that. But if there's a way to do it, that would be probably the neatest way to introduce it. You wouldn't want a standalone, stock car only 24-hour race. If you had Joe Gibbs Racing and you got 4 cars out there, you're going to need 16 drivers, something like that, 12 drivers. And getting in and out of the car is going to be a real challenge. Trying to get the cars comfortable to where drivers can get in and out of the cars will be a real challenge for that many team. That'd be just way too expensive per organization. So what I think is maybe one car from each organization included in what is already the Daytona 24-hour race. And that way, Gibbs could use 3 or 4 of their current drivers for that one team. And it might be a lot of fun just to see, I would be more interested really on how the cars held up and how well they withstood those conditions. And maybe it's a one-time thing. Maybe it's something that turns – I don't know how they could work it into our point system to where it counted some way toward maybe just the manufacturer's points. I'm not sure how they can make it worth the team's efforts. But that would be a cool way to do it.
Matthew Cobb writes in. He wants to know, in honor of it being Throwback Weekend, what is a scheme that you feel like should have already been recognized but hasn't yet?
It's hard to remember all the ones that have been recognized in Darlington for our Throwback weekend there, and even before that in other races. One of the ones that I see pop up from time to time that I actually wasn't a real big fan of back when it was around, but I have become more interested in possibly seeing this car out there, is the Bell South car, number 42. The bright, colorful, neon green, red, and all that. I think maybe Kenny Irwin drove it. Joe Nemechek drove it, I believe. I'm not real sure exactly everyone that drove that car, but that would be a cool one to see for Kyle Larson. And every time we roll around toward Throwback Weekend or the months leading up when everybody's starting to announce their cars, as soon as Kyle Larson starts to tease his announcement of what car he's going to run, social media starts to pour in pictures of this Bell South number 42 car, hoping that this is the year that they're going to run that color scheme. So I would love to see it happen because obviously a lot of other people want to see it as well. That'd be one. Outside of that, I think it would be very cool for Austin Dillon and RCR to do the very first number 3 1981 Wrangler paint scheme. And they would have to use that correct font that Dad had on his car, which is a really wicked-looking kind of, early 80s theme, style number 3. They used it in the back half of 1981. That number font went away. Obviously, Dad went to Budmore, but when he came back to RCR in 1984 or 85, he had a different font for the number 3. So this late 1981 Wrangler number 3 font with the yellow nose, blue tail, I think that'd be a good-looking race car.
Annie T wants to know, are there any throwback announcers you would like to call a race with?
Earlier in the show, we were doing some conversation about that, and Matthew Dillner, David Dillner, for some of you folks, said David Hobbs, right? And so David Hobbs would be pretty cool. He was in the booth in 1979 for the Daytona 500 with Ken Squire. So maybe Ken Squire and Hobbs for a few minutes. Maybe let Hobbs and Squire go for a couple segments, between a couple commercial breaks. I think my favorites are long gone. Benny Parsons was probably one guy that I have a ton of respect for. His ability to be a race car driver and transition into the booth was very challenging, and he did it with ease. A lot of people don't even think it was hard, but he made it look so easy. But he did a very difficult thing, transitioning out of the race car. And Barney Hall was amazing on the radio. Just a beautiful voice, perfect for racing, and perfect for. He was just the only one, that could do it just that way. And I don't know even how to describe his style and the sound of his voice, but I can't imagine anyone else doing races in the 80s better than him. So, but Hobbs would be cool to get back in. He does the F1 stuff now and still quite prevalent and successful with that. And so it'd be cool to have him come in and do a cup race every now and then.
Jimmy Baskin is watching on YouTube, but he's actually about to roll into Charlotte for the day. He wants to know, what barbecue place do you recommend here in Charlotte?
Well, you can go to Whiskey River and get some barbecue there. I have a hard time. I need to branch out. Matthew might have some barbecue places that he could offer, but my barbecue. I have a hard time admitting this, man. I'm not a big fan of North Carolina barbecue.
It's all right.
Huh?
It's all right.
Yeah, I love Texas style and Midwest, Kansas, Oklahoma. But Matthew, do you have any places that you could send this guy out to?
Yeah, if you want to go, if you're a race fan, you go to Lancaster's.
Lancaster's,
here,
yeah.
because of the racing history. But
Right.
if you're a fan of all different genres of barbecue, in my opinion, you go to Smoke Pit in Concord, or you go down to Plaza Midwood, Midwood Smokehouse. They have a good selection of between. Those will give you a good cross section between Carolina barbecue, St. Louis style barbecue, Texas barbecue.
Okay, there you have it. Yeah. Who's next, Leah?
I think that's it for today.
All right, guys, I appreciate y'all tuning in to the Ask Junior segment of the show presented by Nationwide. We appreciate everybody who supports our podcast, and remember that this will be out later tonight with Steve Latart's review of Days of Thunder, the movie, and Matt DiBenedetto as our guest. You can listen to that on all podcast platforms, and then the TV show comes tomorrow, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern on NBCSN.